Welcome to the Pineapple Perspective, and welcome back if you've been here before. Today's a really cool day. I say it every time. I say this a version of this a lot, but I have a really amazing guest today, and it's actually somebody I've known for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years at least. Digitally, we've spent some time together in person, and this is not a restaurant show, but don't turn away. Don't stop listening, because this is going to be exciting, entertaining, and fascinating. I have today with me Mandi Graziano. Mandi, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Troy. Thanks for having me.
Well, you just always bring the energy, the love, the good vibes, and boy, we know you know what you're talking about on the hospitality industry. We'll get into more about that and who you are in a minute. But Mandi, let's start as we do every show by asking you, what does hospitality mean to you?
So I think of hospitality I'm a systems girl, right? So I always think of things in a system. So for me, hospitality is welcome, serve, build lasting relationships. And I think I used to always think it was all about serving. And I also always used to think it was about welcoming. But in the last 5 years or so, I've had to put these things together as a bookend, right? The welcoming, the building lasting relationships, and the serving is the biggest part of it. And I have a couple stories about that I can share later, but just I think welcome, serve, build lasting relationships is how I think about hospitality.
Well, look, you've been in this industry for over 20 years, but where does that mindset come from? Where does that belief of what you think hospitality means? Where did you come up with that thesis?
Yeah, I think it's just growing up in Cleveland, Ohio. My mom always had food in the refrigerator for everybody in the neighborhood. We always welcomed people. We always had people over for holidays. We always adopted people if people were out of town. It's embedded in me as growing up, with my mom, Kathy K, of welcoming people and having people in our sphere. And then, I also think it's a little bit of a disease. Like it's in me, it's sometimes I'm over hospitable. I don't have to be that hospitable, but I think it's in me. And I think it's just a part of, my DNA and part of growing up in Ohio with a big family of 6.
Yeah, that's a big look. I was a family of one. It was grandma, my dad, and me, but my dad loved to throw a good party. And I've told the story many times on the show is I grew up in the kitchen, rolling the ham and cubing the cheese and sticking the toothpicks into everything and building the little skewers I just love to go into the living room and pass it around. Everybody's sitting around, jabbing it up, chit-chatting and having a good old time on any Friday night, Saturday day. Football didn't matter. There were people always in the house. Heck, I would go out sometimes as a teenager, come back, and my friends would be sitting in my house with my dad.
Same. Yeah, I had the same. I still, to this day, my friends in Ohio go visit my parents without me. And I was making Bacardi and Cokes for people. I was making cocktails when I was like 7 years old. I was, not that that's like an awesome thing to do, but it's just, sitting. I think the thing is just sitting around, laughing, talking, crying, just being in a community situation has always been a part of my life.
Look, I grew up with a 4-stool bar in my living room, like a sit at full on back bar, wet bar. Not what we have today in the modern house with like a wine fridge and a little counter. I'm talking about a bar. Like you walk in, there was a saloon in my living room. So come on. I know you look, I was making 7 and 7s. My dad was a 6 and 7 and 7.
Yeah.
So.
My mom, Bacardi and Coke, a little twist of lemon.
There you go. Mandi, let's introduce you. I said you've been in the hospitality industry for over 20 years. You've done a lot of things. You are still doing quite a few things. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and where you come from.
Yeah, well, Mandi Graziano. I live in San Diego, California. I'm a multi-business owner. First things first, I'm an author. That's my biggest pride and joy. I've always wanted to write a book. And 4 years ago, I wrote a book called Sales Tales, The Hustle, Humor, and Lessons of a Life in Sales. It's a hilarious business book. It's mostly about hospitality stories. So the whole book goes through the sales process from prospecting, networking, closing a deal, building value, disaster selling. It just goes through the process start to finish. But since I grew up in the hospitality industry over the last 27 years or so, there's a lot of hospitality stories. In fact, I have people that I don't know that will ask me, hey, is this story about this hotel or is this story about this person? And they're right a lot of times, but the lawyers had me leave some names out to protect the innocent. So, I'm an author. I have another book I'm working on right now that'll come out towards the end of next year. With writing a book, I always had a sales coaching business for the last 18 years or so. But when you write a book, more people want you to speak, you get on more stages and you do more sales coaching. So I do group sales coaching for predominantly the hospitality industry. But what I have found, and I love about your podcast, is every single industry can benefit from modeling after the hospitality industry. So I have been working a lot with real estate companies and PR firms, tech, manufacturing, and all different people, and doing group sales coaching for their sales teams as well. And then the third business is I find hotels and venues all over the world for conferences. I am an associate with Hospitality Performance Network Global. So when I look at those three businesses, they all sort of interact with each other, right? So, whether it's I can speak at a conference or I can find a conference venue, sales is just in my blood. And so whether I'm helping somebody with a sales kickoff or President's Club, or if I'm speaking at their conference, they all sort of feed into each other in some way.
Well, and transparently and candidly, I've only waited 4 years to be able to call Mandi, but a couple weeks ago I called Mandi and said, "Hey, Pepper Lunch needs to have its first franchisee conference. We've never had our franchise conference as a brand in the United States. So we need to invite all of our franchisees in the US, our soon to be franchisees, even a few prospect franchisees, a lot of our vendors. We got to get together. And why wouldn't we do that in San Diego, California in the winter of 2026?" And I call Mandi, and in a matter of like minutes, it felt like minutes. Maybe it was a day. She's back to me with, "Here's the 6 venues. Here's the price points. Here's the availability. This is what I would recommend. Here's how you should do it." That's why I called Mandi. I just wanted the problem solved. I just wanted to know who, what, where, when, how much. We want to have a great time. We want to educate and spend time and build community with our franchisees and our vendors. And so simple as that. You call Mandi. But it's not the first time, because I've introduced Mandi to other people in the hotel business to go and help sales teams and get with, hotel events and rooms booking sales teams and help level them up. So she does a lot besides read that book, and hell, she's a heck of a speaker. I'll tell you that.
Troy, thank you. And those referrals, those mean the world to me. And my face was just beaming with joy when I got that voice message from you. It's a joy to help, especially for a first time meeting like that. It's a joy to help. It's a joy to help create that together and make your life easier. So thank you for trusting me to help you with that.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right, Mandi, let's talk about a couple of topics. Let's get into some meat on the bone here. Talk a little bit about, if you're standing there looking at the restaurant industry, and so many of us, you're a part of the Rising Tides community from day one, and you hear from all these restaurant operators, single unit to people like me, multi-unit executives. What, as you look at this from your lens on more of the hotel resort sort of environment and spending time with a lot of those people, how are you seeing the restaurant industry today? What's standing out? What's good? What's bad? What's catching your attention?
All right. Well, I'm going to start with the bad and we'll end on a high. We'll end with the good. But I think what I'm seeing a lot, and I'm thinking specifically of restaurants and bars inside hotels, but this is relatable, I think, to anything, is people aren't listening. Operators aren't listening. You're not listening to your customers. You're not listening to your employees. And it's so easy. The clues are there. People are dropping breadcrumbs for you everywhere, but people aren't listening. And if you are listening, people aren't taking action. So I think it's this 2-part thing of, redesign your restaurant. If you're not getting revenue in one area, redesign it. And I don't mean a physical, functional redesign of a facility. Redesign how you greet people. Redesign what the menu looks like. Redesign how you market to people, and ask the question and listen. I think the hotels that I see that are doing it right, like they're creating vignettes of networking spaces. Instead of a big, huge open restaurant, they're creating little pockets of spaces. With this distributed workforce right now, we've got to remember, sometimes you're going to have people getting together of 10 to 12 to 14 people for a team meeting or a lunch or whatever, and they don't want to be at the hotel. They just might come together because they're all coming from Southern California, or they're coming from all different parts of Ohio or all different parts of Texas, and they're just there that one day. So I think, like, just listening to your customers and then taking action on it is really important. A lot of people aren't listening. People are doing what they've always done, or they're doing what they think people want, or they're doing what they want, but they've got some blind spots and they're not listening or they're not asking. So I think listening is a big challenge right now.
When you think about, and this may apply more to the full service restaurant industry, but when you think about people who have space, they have venue, right? They have private rooms, they have patios, they have sections of their restaurant they can cordon off. What advice right off the top could you give to the restaurant industry that maybe the hotel side, because they do much more of this, understands a little bit better? Talk about how restaurateurs can really think about getting into the events game and how meaningful that can be. But give us some tips on some of those things they need to be thinking about.
Yeah, so I've got a bunch. We could be here all day. Have a dedicated person to actually respond to leads as they come in, and you've got to respond within 24 hours because that buying decision goes quick. And most people that have restaurants that have private event space, or even they want to do more catering, they're not responding quick. So all you have to do is respond quick to get the business. It's super easy to gain market share right now. So have one dedicated person. If you don't have one dedicated person, make somebody that has multiple jobs dedicate time to it, right? So maybe it's every day for 1 hour, you're responding to all the private party leads, or you're responding to all the catering leads. Have separate catering menus. Make sure they're profitable. I see a lot of restaurants do this where they put together a menu and it's not profitable. Like, make sure you do some litmus testing. Maybe it's your own friends and family. You throw a couple soft events to figure out what's profitable, what takes a lot of labor, what doesn't take a lot of labor. But I think response time, having that menu, and then testing it out. Like, test out as much as you can, because the only way you're going to know how your operation can handle that, what the bandwidth is of your operation, is if you actually test it out. And then once you test it out, keep changing it. So for example, if it's a physical space, you're not going to know how people physically move around that space. So you get bodies in there. So I would just throw one a month, right? Maybe it's a happy hour in there for, people in the local business community, or maybe it's a friends and family thing. Maybe it's a reunion. Get people in there once a month so you understand how people navigate through there. And then after 3 or 4 months, you're going to also identify other revenue opportunities, right? So is it an upsell? Is it a tray pass hors d'oeuvre on arrival? Is it an upsell cotton candy machine? Is it an upsell? Oh, we have space for a karaoke bar, whatever that is. I just think like knowing your space, testing your space, and then identifying some room for revenue is important. But number one, response time, having a dedicated person or making dedicated time for that.
Yeah, let me echo some of that. I mean, one is response time is, unless the person desperately really wants to have it in your venue, they've called 5 or 6 places minimum, and
minimum
2 or 3 of them meet their need. 2 or 3 of them are an okay answer. Now, maybe you're the best choice, maybe you're not, but you got to get on it. And I love the dedicated person. I tell people on the catering side, just the catering sales side, a restaurant could add 10, 15% to their top line easily if they had a dedicated catering person. So same for full service events, and consider that catering too. That person can manage the catering that goes out of the building and the on-site caterings that happen, as well as is the inbound and on-premise events as well. But, pay them a small salary and then incentivize them with 10% of the gross of every event. I mean, a catering events person in a restaurant or a restaurant brand or chain can make a lot of money, but they build relationships. You got to give them that incentive to want to get to know their customer, build relationships, know what's reoccurring. Some companies do things monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually. So it's not just Christmas parties and annual sales awards galas, right? There's a lot of things that happen in between.
The social market is huge too. Just birthday party. I mean, I turned 50 in August. I'm looking at venues for my 50th birthday. The social market is big, but Troy, I can't tell you how many times, how many private party, how many restaurants or bars or nightclubs that I do sales coaching for. And the very first thing out of the owner's mouth is, I've got an admin that can handle that. And when I go through what their
it's like your
responsibilities are,
your social media channel. I've got a teenage niece handling my social media channel, right?
I had one too until she outgrew it, and then I was like, oh, I need to actually pay somebody like an expert for that kind of thing. Yeah, so I get that. But the other piece is if you're a purveyor and this is above your head or you're not interested, there are so many great companies you can outsource this to. There are great companies that are actually, they've got their own private event venues, but they will also be a management service. They will also be management thing, and they will take all your leads. They will operate as if they are you. They will book it. So all you have to do is show up with your operations team. So consider that as well. And then going back to the catering person, like one of my favorite things is writing a comp plan for that catering job, because it's so easy. It's so attainable. It's so results oriented. You can see instant results within 3 months if you write it the right way. So I agree with you, is, lower salary, high performance commissions, or however you want to look at it, or bonuses. But that comp plan is that's a fun one. It's fun to give people opportunities like that.
Talk a little bit about marketing your venue, your space, special events, getting into giving people the idea that your venue should be considered for something that maybe you wouldn't think people would look at your venue, your restaurant, your space for.
Well, a couple of things. The people make the place. And I think so many times people think it's the brick and mortar. Let me show the inside. Let me show you everything that's pretty. But it's the behind the scenes that make the place. I was just at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a couple weeks ago for a speech. They're doing a massive renovation. And I was talking with them about, they were making fun of, they're like, as of right now, it looks like a nuclear power plant. We're building around it. And I was like, you got to show the shovel in the dirt. You got to show the nuclear power plant, show where it started, show how it's going, show where it ended. People want to see that, right? They want to see, I think about Lenny, the doorman at the Omni Berkshire, New York, that hotel. Lenny opens the door for you. He does a little dance for you. He moves your bags for you. Lenny now has this TikTok account that has grown to like 60,000 followers or something crazy like that. Lenny is the person that makes the place. People, the Omni Berkshire, New York, it's not the newest hotel. The rooms are definitely not the biggest. I'll tell you that. But that place has personality because Lenny is the greeter there. And people go there to do a dance with Lenny, but they're coming in for a drink. They're coming in to do an event there. They're coming in to book a meeting there because Lenny's stimulating it. Like, that's the vehicle, right? Because people buy from people. They don't buy from the brand. And that gives so many marketing people a heart attack. But your people making the food, your people greeting, your people serving the food, your bartender throwing things in the air, those are the people, those are the vehicles that take the customer to the brand. So I would just show as much as you possibly can about the people that make the place. And then, if you have a really cool new setup, you're doing a 50th birthday party, you're doing a cool event, show that too. Utilize social media, but also brag. I think I saw this stat not too long ago. It was like a Google stat, and it's like 63% of people that buy online look at 3 or more Google reviews before they buy. And if we know this is how people buy, and most people buy online, then why aren't your reviews everywhere possible? And I'm not just talking about Google reviews. I'm saying, like, somebody comes in and has a great experience and they shoot you a text, share that as an Instagram story. Put that on. Like, you've got it. People in restaurants and bars and venues have to start making their reviews and testimonials more visible. Stop asking for, like, can you give me a testimonial? And just screen grab that and show it. I think that's going to actually help with marketing as well.
Yeah, authentic, right? It's in the moment. It's real.
Yeah.
Just share it. Yeah, I was thinking while you're talking that, if you have one or many restaurants and you have a sales team, or you have a salesperson that maybe does one or all of those venues, let's get into the coaching mindset of Mandi, and what she really does really well most days is, what are some tips for those salespeople to be more successful? I mean, I think there's some basic tried and true stuff that everybody tells them to do, but I see a lot of folks like just sort of answering the phone, right? And that's, we got to get out there, and we got the marketing, we got the social channels, but how do these salespeople need to go about thinking about this process and what they should be thinking and not missing?
2 reasons salespeople fail in any organization, I see it over and over again, is time management and passion for product. So the first thing I do whenever I'm coaching a sales team or I'm coaching somebody one-on-one is I'm like, tell me about your day. How are you set up? What does your wingspan look like? Do you have a script visible? Do you have talking points visible? how quickly do you have the tools to be able to get out a proposal? Like some people, it takes like 20 minutes to just point and click and attach because their stuff is everywhere. So the first things first is just get yourself set up for speed and success. Then we dig a little bit deeper. We talk about how do you manage your day, right? Like when you wake up in the morning, you get your personal stuff out of the way, you're buckling up and getting ready for the day. How does that look like? What does your revenue producing time look like? What does your non-revenue producing time look like? Are you scheduling time to be on LinkedIn? Are you scheduling time to operate? Are you scheduling time to actually read and understand more about the industry? Are you scheduling time to shop your competition? So I spend a lot on the front end helping people figure out what their time looks like, because then if you're built for speed, then you're going to be really, really quick results oriented. And then the second thing is passion for product. There's a lot of people, they don't like what they're selling. And if you don't like what you're selling, go find somebody else to sell it, or don't sell it, or go find something else to sell. I think you've got to love what you're selling and realize a great salesperson is a listener and an educator. So, find out what your value proposition is, right? Like make a list of, as a person, here's what my superpower is. As a business, here what my superpower is. Make that visible. So when you get into a conversation or you get into an email dialogue with somebody, you've got those things you can easily rattle off. So I think I would start slow with those two things. And then, then the gates open up from there, and then we get a little more sophisticated from there.
Yeah. I think having some, what we used to call canned responses, and don't leave dear bracket name. Don't do that. But some canned responses with some of these documents preloaded. You can have it for, anniversary, birthday, under 12, under 20, up to 50, whatever. You can sort of have these things pre-built so that it's easy to just put it out there. And then you have your custom ones like, oh, let's get creative. We got some fun stuff. Let me throw this at you and see if you like it. But that's really the upsell opportunity as well. Mandi, last thing on this point of sort of the technical stuff, I've heard you talk a lot about like contract stuff. A lot of your content that I've seen come across my feed, you really harp on the contract piece and being knowledgeable and understanding this. Talk to us a little bit about the do's and don'ts and high level stuff that really matters there.
If you are sending a contract to anybody, you've got to know that contract forward and backwards. It's a lot of words. A lot of it's confusing, but you can't send a contract and not know what it means, because somebody's going to ask you a question. You got to be able to answer it. And one word changing can change the entire value of the contract, right? Especially right now, we're in this, I'm calling it this disaster selling era. Disaster is a little bit of a dramatic word, but I think people understand it. I'm very certain about these uncertain times. I'm not worried about this right now, right? But there's a lot of people that may lose their jobs. There's a lot of people that may change jobs. There's a lot of people that feel uncertain. One of the most important things you can do during this disaster selling phase is understand your existing contracts. Understand that you may have a leverage point right now to renegotiate some things, whether that's with your existing vendors or whether that's with your existing clients. But your customers are going to ask to renegotiate something. Mark my words. You're listening to this in the next 2 months. A customer is going to ask you to renegotiate something. If you don't understand that contract forward and backward, you don't have the leverage to negotiate. AI, Claude, ChatGPT is really good at explaining. Like, let's say you have, mutual indemnification clause in there. Not many people, like, I know what that means forward and backwards, but I'm a nerd. I'm a contract nerd. Not many people know what that means. If you don't have the right language in there, it can hurt your business. It can hurt your venue. And let's say a customer changes that to make it forward to them and not forward to you. That totally hurts you. Same with force majeure clauses, same with cancellations, same with renovation and construction clauses. So I would know your contract forward and backward. If you don't understand it, I'm happy to always explain it to people. I do these contract 101 classes all the time because I was lucky very early on, like 26, 27 years ago. One of my first bosses, we called him Dan the Drill, because he would drill you and ask you questions over and over again about contracts. And I learned how to negotiate a contract very, very early on. And the older I get, I realize people don't know. They don't understand what's every word in that contract and how it can impact their business. But you also want to be an expert to your customer. And sometimes customers they'll ask me, I deal with general counsel and legal departments all the time, and they'll be like, well, we want to strike that. And I'll be like, but why? Because the way it is right now actually is more in your favor. It's more beneficial to you. So you can serve as an expert and serve as a somebody that's very valuable if you just understand your contracts, and you just want to protect yourself too.
Yeah, I think like you just said, my franchise lawyers of what I would call a common sense lawyer. I've heard her say to other lawyers, so if you take that away, or we change those words to that, here are some examples of how that benefits us. And she'll
Yes.
give it back to them like, we could have taken that from you, but that's not the spirit of this partnership or relationship. Do you get that? Oh yeah, sorry. Oops. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
While you were talking, I'm so glad you said the words force majeure. What
Yeah.
is force majeure, and when does it actually apply or not? Is probably one of the most common questions from a customer to a venue, or the attempted argument from a customer to a venue that something was force majeure. No, it's not. Okay, let's understand what these things mean. I think it's a really, really important thing. Mandi, you are focusing on something I haven't really heard you talk about, but you're really doing something around kids and getting them involved in hospitality earlier in their curriculum. And talk a little bit about your passion around this and what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, couple things. I'm on the board for the California Hotel Lodging Association Hospitality Foundation, and we award scholarships to California college students. So all you have to do is attend an accredited California college and be pursuing a career in hospitality or just work in hospitality. And Troy, this doesn't mean you work at a bar, or restaurant, or hotel. This could mean you work for a real estate company that buys and sells hotels. You could work for an asset management company in the engineering department. There's so many different ways you can look at this. And what that organization does is we give scholarships. Like I have an interview later today. We're interviewing a student, and we award $200,000 in scholarships every year. But this all culminates up to the gala, the big gala in the fall. And a couple years ago, we were talking about the students. I was like, let me get this straight. We give these students money. We invite them to a gala where they're interacting with decision makers, people that could actually give them a job, but we give them no tools whatsoever on how to network or interact. And they're like, yep, that's right. I'm like, all right, I'm creating a networking program. So we do this virtual networking that actually arms them a week before and gives them like, here's how to crash a circle. Here's how to interact with people. Here's questions to ask. Here's how you approach a CEO. Here's how you approach a director, a manager. Here's how you approach administrative team. Like here's how you approach people at different levels. Questions you ask, things that matter to them. So by the time they come to that gala, they're armed and dangerous, and they're getting jobs coming out of it, like, which is really awesome. And we're building the bench of the hospitality community, which is awesome. But that's just one of the things. Like my real passion, I think you're alluding to this. My long-term passion is I want to start a sales school, and I want this school. It's not it's not like, I think sometimes we think we want to start a school in an underprivileged area. I want to start a school for all kids because I think we start sales too late. I think there's no sales that are taught anywhere, even in advanced business curriculum. My husband has his MBA. He didn't take one sales class. He is awesome at spreadsheets, but we have a garage sale or a house. If somebody wants to negotiate, he's running in and asking me, like he's petrified of that experience, even though he's a killer business person. So we're not teaching sales. And when I interact with salespeople across the world, I will never forget some of these experiences in non-American countries where the sales aptitude is so much more advanced than we have here. So I think we get really good at our jobs, but we don't really think about sales till we're like in our 30s and 40s. And by then we're 20 years from retiring. And I think we need to be masters of our craft earlier. So I volunteer for junior achievement in the classrooms. I see how susceptible kids are. They understand value. They understand pricing. They understand passions. I really want to someday start a sales school for kids where we teach them the principles of sales and we get the wheels turning earlier. So by the time they go to college, or maybe they decide not to go to college, maybe they decide just to pursue a career in sales when they're 18, which is amazing. At least they understand the notion of sales, and we're destigmatizing the notion of sales. I think there's such a, there's such a stigma about sales. It's not a dirty word. We got to start it sooner. And I think it starts with kids. I think it starts with educating kids sooner about it.
Well, look, at the end of the day, sales in the hospitality business is about creating memories. It's about designing time and space and experience so that people can do what it is they're coming together to do. It doesn't matter what that is. You're facilitating this opportunity, and that's a profession. That's a noble thing to do, is to help people understand something they don't do every day. You don't know how to work with a hotel, and you don't understand attrition of hotel rooms, and you don't understand F&B minimums, and you're leaning on these people to say, what's a canapé versus an hors d'oeuvre versus right? What are truffles, for God's sakes? Well, they could be mushrooms or they could be chocolates, what kind of truffles are we talking about?
Or they could be great ideas. It depends on how you use it.
Yeah, there's a lot there to help people. Make it easy for people to do the thing they're trying to do, which is celebrate a 50th birthday. Mine is in October. You're just slightly older than me, a couple of months.
Birthday twins.
Yeah, pretty close. But I think you're absolutely right. Sales tends to be a fallback, or you don't learn anything about the craft until the employer teaches you their way of selling. And so it's really hard to innovate, right? It's really hard to be the change maker when you come into a space and you have to learn from that system how they do it rather than come with some competency and some confidence. So I think that's pretty awesome stuff.
You just said something that reminded me of something else, because I deal with this a lot too, where I work with owners of companies or CEOs, and they're talking about sales. And it's like, the reality is great leaders are persuasive, and great leaders are great salespeople. And I think if you want to, even if you don't want to be in sales, I think if you just want to own your own company or be a leader of any sort, you've got to grasp this notion of sales and put some sales practice. Now, great salespeople aren't always great leaders, and that's a whole conversation for another day, another time. We talk about career succession planning. But, if you want to lead anything, anywhere, you've got to get good at listening and educating and inspiring people, and the power of persuasion. And all of that is sales. So we got to grip it as early as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Mandi, how and why do people connect with you? Talk about your offerings, summarize it, help people find you and work with you, because you're amazing. You're my first call, even sometimes not even for what you do. I'm just like, I got to call Mandi and run this by her. But
I love those. I love Troy calls. Yeah.
And tell people how to find you and why they should give you a call.
Yeah. So you can find me, mandigraziano.com. So it's Mandi with an I, Graziano with a Z.com. You could just Google Mandi Graziano. You'll find me. Sales Tales, my book, is on Amazon or wherever you get books. We have a podcast. I also have a podcast. Troy's been on our podcast. It's called Adventures in Business Live. And that's every Monday. We interview CEOs, founders, and thought leaders about their trips and triumphs and successes and stumbles in business. You can find that on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I really believe in building and lifting up and giving back. And that has never, ever done me wrong. And I love surrounding myself with like-minded people like you, Troy, who believe in that as well. So if you want to connect with a like-minded person, a little bit of a sales nerd, but somebody that wants to give back, and, track me down. That's my whole plot on the planet. And I'm sticking to it because it's worked.
Well, look, as a part of the Rising Tides community, we'd say, we're all weirdly available. And I think it's just true. Yeah. Everybody here wants to give back, be available, share thoughts, make connections, make referrals. And if we can do business together, great. But, at the end of the day, we're all here to be part of this community. So I'm so grateful you are. You're a great person, a great friend, great thought leader, industry specialist, and really enjoyed having you on the Pineapple Perspective.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you for listening to the Pineapple Perspective. If you loved today's episode, leave a review and a 5-star rating. I look forward to welcoming you back next time.